We just finished building this huge ground mount solar array behind us. And we're not professionals, we're DIYers. So if you want to see how we threw it together on the cheap, stick around. Hi, I'm David and welcome to my channel where I like to DIY renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. If you would like to see how I built one of these arrays, check out some of my previous videos. But this video is just this third array, which is 5.1 kilowatts, the largest to date. Now this is part of a larger project where I'm trying to see if I can power my entire house off the grid. I also purchased the frame. It was leftover pieces from a commercial installation. And I was able to purchase some of this steel at scrap steel pricing. I ran a string line and it runs down there to the corner of that array. And I measured off from the middle array so that when I ran the string line, I ran it parallel. And the point was so that this front corner lines up with the front corner of that array, so everything's symmetrical. Is slightly canted, so it's south by southeast facing, so it's going to capture that morning sunlight. Okay, here's where the array is going to go. This is the gravel I'm using. It's just 3/4 inch, and all I'm trying to do is put down a capillary break. That's the only point here. That's what they look like after a little bit of hand tamping. In order to check for level, I put down a couple of scrap pieces of cinder block in the four corners. When I look at it here, I can see that the front is a little bit high. So I'm gonna put more gravel down in the back. And we'll just go through and make sure that we do that. I'm bringing them up to the highest point, which is this front corner as of right now. Back here I have a pile of some scrap stuff, and I've got 2 large chunks of oak. Now I cut these freehand out of a tree that I fell maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they've just been sitting back here. You know, they're about 3 by 9, something like that. Now this is currently about 11 feet long, so I'm gonna cut this one and this one to 8 feet and then have a couple of pieces left over. To cut these up, I'll use my battery powered chainsaw. Now this is oak, and as you can see, after 4 or 5 years of just sitting around, it's still pretty solid. These ones were nice, solid 3 inches, but the other chunks that I have over here, they're not. So I marked them out at 3 inches, and I've been splitting them. And, you know, I mean, it's certainly easier if you just buy yourself 4x6s or 6x6s, but, you know, part of this is just fun. I'm using lumber that I cut, you know, trees that I cut down here on the property, and, you know, it's just a little bit of fun mixed in with all this. So in the 4 corners, I drilled 2 holes that line up with the base plate. All right, now we're going to flip this piece of oak over. There we go, backside. I'm going to put in these torque washers, and they will grab the square head of this carriage bolt. And now with it lined up, I'm going to try to... Now I can remove the carriage bolt, this in. Alright, so with that tapped in, now that'll grab onto the square head of the carriage bolt. Okay, so I just turned this on its side, and now I'm going to finish tapping these in, and I can make sure that that square lines up. There we go. Well, I made this little sketch to help me cut this post down. So we have the north rear post and the south front post. Now the rear post is already 96.5, and the front post needs to be cut down. So let's go look at the front post. Here's the front post, and it's about twice as long as it needs to be. So I'm gonna have to cut this down. So here's how they're going to lay out in the rafter. We have the south post and the north post. So they're going to go in. I need to drill a corresponding hole in the post for the hole that's in the rafter for both the south and the north post. Now this is, if I set this up like it would be a pretty shallow angle, which would be fine in the summer, but not for year-round use. I'm just gonna grab a random piece of paper and wrap it around the pipe. Let's say I wrap it around the pipe and I'm off. Well, then my two ends don't line up. See how this isn't lining up with this edge? If I'm straight, then the two ends will line up with each other. And that's how I know that I'm making a straight line. Now I can trace this. All right, now I'm gonna slide this down and I'm gonna do one more right here at where the hole is gonna be located. So this is where the hole is gonna go, and this is where I'm gonna cut it off. All the holes are drilled and the short ones are cut down. I sprayed all the open ends with this cold galvanizing compound. There we go. I went to put the posts on the footers where I have the carriage bolts coming up, and it turns out the slots that are in the base of this post are not big enough. This is a carbide cutting tip on a rotary cutoff tool, and I can get enough material out of the way. But if you know a better way in an oval shaped hole to widen it, please let me know in the comments below. Finally ready for our first front post. This is the diagonal that runs all the way back and the shim. We can put our first post on here. So flat washers, lock washers, and nuts. I'm checking for level between the two front posts. I was worried this one would be higher now because it has shims and this side doesn't. And it is, it's slightly higher. I'm gonna go ahead and shim this as well. In that corner over there and in this corner, I don't have a diagonal. So I made some shims and I bent over one lip, drilled a couple holes, I sprayed it down with the galvanized compound. Now that the poles are up, the next thing to do is to assemble these rafters. There's two rafters that will span from this pole to this pole. I have another one over there. So we need to put these L brackets on. Big hunk, I mean it's heavy. And there's a riveted in thread. So they're gonna line up like that. 1.5 inch long, 1/2 inch diameter, serrated flanged head bolts. All galvanized. And the instructions specifically say to leave this a little bit loose, and that's so that when you go and put the purlins on, there's a little bit of flex. Once you get the purlins attached, then these get tightened down completely. 4 on this rafter and 4 on that rafter. So I've been working my way down the line, and unfortunately this last riv nut has damage to it. It's actually now spinning because I was trying to force the bolt into it, and now it's loose, it's spinning, but it looks like it probably got damaged some point in shipping, and I can't get the bolt in there. So I'm gonna have to cut that off, and I've gone in my parts bin and I was able to find a nut that is the right threads and a washer. So I'll just put that on the back side of this one, and that'll be fine, it'll still work. But too bad. I just put some vice grips on the back side. Let's see if we can drill this a little bit. So somewhere in this mess I was off on my calculation. I made a mark where the hole needs to be down here, right there. So I need to drill a new hole. Right now, all the nuts and bolts are still a little loose because I have to make sure that things are straight. Now, I don't want to make sure that things are straight based just on this outside edge because I cut this. So instead, I'm going to line up this string with the very edge of this hole, this oval, and when we look up, we can get an idea. Now that second one from the top, that one there needs to go left a little bit. Now I put a little stick underneath the bottom and top so that if the two in the middle are a little bit high, they won't push the string one way or the other. And now everything is lined up with that string. Now I can go tighten the other side. On the back of this solar array, we need to install some cross bracing, which is going to go diagonally from corner to corner, and that is going to prevent racking, or basically the whole array tipping left to right. We're going to use this stuff. So these are turnbuckles and some wire rope, and these are clamps that go over the poles, or these clamps we'll clamp around the poles and we'll put it all together. We're going to take these two clamps and they clamp together like this. We're going to put it around this pole as low as we can. Can you hold the middle? There you go. And hold it in the middle so the holes line up, okay? So that when I put this bolt through, we get both. You're doing it! You did it! Good job! And now look, it's connected. Yep, back and forth, you're doing it! Good job! Oh, try again. So the turnbuckle is still loose on this clamp, and we're just tightening this down. Now I'll do a final tightening once this is in position, but once I tighten it all the way, it's probably going to clamp down on this eye hook.
Can I have that?
So now we need to turn this so that it loosens up. These cables came without any, whatever the strain relief thing is. So this thing, it's called a thimble. I'm going to loosen this clamp and then put this in here and bring the clamp up tight. Okay, pull that up. Now I can tighten this down with the strain relief in place. So now I've got that in there. Now we can hook this on. The wire rope is now on and across, and I did tape up these two ends because these things, they always snag me when I walk by. So I'm going to tighten these up now. So I'm up on top of the array, and what I'm doing is I'm grabbing this slot because I don't actually care about the corner of the steel, I care about the slot where the solar panels will line up. At this point we're measuring our two diagonals across the face where the solar panels will go. The other one was 25 feet, 6.5 inches to that corner, and now we are at 25 feet and 8 5/8. And what I'm doing is going right to the edge. Yeah, so I'm going right to the edge of that slot right there. What I'm going to do is tighten this turnbuckle, and I'm going to pull this side in until this gets tighter, which is why I have my great helper out here to let me know when that stops. And it's pulling both sides in right now. Pull up again on this side, closer to you. Pull up. Up, up, up. There you go. You're doing it. And now let's pull this diagonal again. And I'm coming over here where the slot intersects with that blue line. And it looks like we have 7 5/8. Alright, now I just have to move the ladder and go around to the other side again. Alright, so the last one was 7 5/8. I just moved it to that corner. And now we'll go over here. And perfect. I mean, I have a little bit of stretch because it's a fiberglass tape, but I'm trying to do the same amount of pulling force each time. So I am quite happy with that. Now there's a little bit of play left and right because these are slots, but we're trying to get it as close as perfect, and we did. There's 20, 25, 26. Well, it's 8 a.m. and you can see 2 of the solar arrays are in the shade, and this last one is in the sun. That's why I twisted it. See, this array here is directly south. This array I twisted so it's a little bit more southeast, and it will capture the morning sunshine. It had ice all over it from last night, dropped below freezing, and is melting away now. But today should be a good day. It was raining the last 2 days, so we'll finish this up so that I can mark where I need to cut them. So I'm going to put a mark here to cut the long one, and then I need to make another mark where I need to drill it. So now I have written there, drill and cut. And here are the long ones cut down. These are the extra pieces. Here's where I cut them off and drilled my new holes. Now I just spray it down again with the cold galvanizing compound. There was a lot of customization that I had to do cutting down the steel because these were scrap pieces left over from a larger array. I now have the diagonals going from here back. So this creates a triangle on the bottom, and then the upper rafter creates a big triangle in the rear. So everything's triangles. The diagonal cable in the back. The only thing that's not a triangle right now is this front rectangle. It's fairly short. Now these solar panels I purchased used. They are 365 watt panels. I purchased for $100 per panel, and they were on a building for 3 years. I'll go through and tighten everything after I get all the panels on, because I want to make sure that all the gaps are the same. There's a little bit of play left and right. It is taller off the ground. Now I did that because I found with my first array that I built in the backyard, when the snow would slide off, it would pile up and block the bottom row. So I'd have to come through with the snow blower. Here's the hardware we're going to use. We have a pan head bolt with a star washer and a serrated flange head nut. And all of this is stainless steel. It's M8. This star washer is important, and we're going to put it on the bolt first. What it's going to do is bite in through the hard anodized coating on the aluminum frame. So here's the aluminum frame. We're going to take this bolt from the back side. We're putting the bolt in from the back side. So that star washer, can you see it in back there? So that star washer back there is going to bite into the hard anodized coating on the aluminum frame. This stainless steel nut has a serrated flange on it. That's going to bite into the galvanized coating of the frame. So when these go together, it's called bonding. We're bonding the frame of the solar panel to the frame on the ground, and when we torque this down, everything bites together and it makes an electrical bond. Good morning. It is the next day. It's almost 8 a.m. At 8 a.m. the shade will be completely off this panel. Now it's pretty cold out. It is about 22 degrees Fahrenheit, and I need to finish securing the back side of these. They're still just hand tight, and I finished that up in the dark last night. I secured the middle-most panel, and now what I'm going to do is gap to the left and gap to the right. So this is 1-inch square tube, and I'm laying it in between the two solar panels. This one is a fixed solid, and I'm sliding it over. Now it's pinching that piece of aluminum, and it's exactly 1 inch. Now I'm going to go on the back side and try to tighten this. All right, so I'm snugging them down, but not over tightening them yet. Okay, that's going to be the process, going around and tightening these, sliding them over one at a time, making sure we have that 1 inch gap. Once I finish tightening them all, we'll come back and check how they're doing. I'm going through and torquing all of these to 11 foot-pounds, and that is the specification in the manual for these M8 stainless steel bolts. I'm laying down 4 joists to span from the front and back beams so that I can just load it up with whatever scrap wood or steel or whatever I got back here. So I marked them out and drilled the holes. Now I'm just spraying it down with the cold galvanizing compound. And I'm using some galvanized hardware to connect these galvanized pieces of steel together. This is a ballasted array. Now because I'm not anchored to the ground, I'm floating on top, I have to make sure the whole array doesn't tip over in the wind. To do that, I'm loading the array down with weight, just whatever I have. Over 1,000 pounds worth of steel just in the ballast. The frame itself is over 1,000 pounds, and I'm not done. I'm going to add even more. The top row of panels is turned upside down compared to the bottom row, so that all the wiring is going to be easy to do. Well, thank you everybody so much for watching the build. If you like it, please like, subscribe, comment, share. In a future video, we'll get to wiring these panels together and then run the wiring into the garage so that we can use that power.